name's Rachel and today we're talking about Guarding Temptation by Talia Hibbert. About two people who do spicy stuff together under the cover of darkness but can't enter a relationship in the daylight because they just assume the other isn't interested.
It's a bit like love. Sometimes it falls apart.
For many pages. You could have just asked. Also, there's stalking, not by the love interest. And this is also the brother's best friend trope, which I know some of you don't like. No, the brother is also not the stalker, in case you were wondering. This isn't One Tree Hill. I'll come back to that. Nina and James have known each other for a long time, since childhood. James becomes Nina's bodyguard because of the stalking, and like every good bodyguard falls for his charge. Wait, James refers to Nina repeatedly throughout the book as Cupcake, like a bonkers amount of times. I don't know about you, but I'm sick of nicknames. I'm sick of women being called nicknames like in general. Every book I read now is little bird, little crow, little mouse, and then violence. But I'm especially done with food nicknames. If I had to hear a cupcake from this man one more time, I was going to smash a cupcake into his face just like I did for Carlos on our gender reveal for our oldest kid. You never see a man getting called Cupcake, by the way. You know, actually, I do give a pass to Vi from Arcane calling Caitlin Cupcake, but that's different.
Stop calling me that. My name is Caitlin.
But you're so sweet. Like a cupcake.
Men never get called delicious desserts, and I feel like that's not fair to the men. You don't hear men getting called cinnamon roll by the characters in the book. We only call them that outside of the book. I demand justice for the cinnamon roll nickname. So in honor of this guy, I made cinnamon roll. Speaking of which, have you heard of Craftsy before? They actually sponsored today's video. Craftsy is an online community for the crafters, makers, and bakers who want to advance their creative skills or learn some new ones. They have over 2,000 classes you can take, not just baking, but also painting, drawing, sewing, cooking, crochet. I know you nerds love your crochet. The classes are all step-by-step and they have downloadable resources to help make it easy for you. I really like baking. I used to bake before I did all of this. I've been using Craftsy to help me elevate my cake decorating skills and also try new variations on recipes with Carlos and my kids. My kids are absolute fiends for cinnamon rolls. So I took this class by Judith Fertig that broke down how to make them from scratch and not from the tube. I was inspired by Judith's. She has like unique spins on cinnamon rolls, not just like she has the regular and then she has like different variations outside of the traditional. So I was inspired by this and I made brown butter coffee icing instead of regular, which I started eating with a spoon, to be honest. I've also used Craftsy to try other new things like meringue batter cakes, which I found meringue super daunting. All those egg whites, I don't know what I'm doing. With over 2,000 classes in more than 20 creative categories, there's always something new to learn. Make something new for the cupcake or cinnamon roll in your life. The first 1,000 people to click the link in the description below will get a full year of premium membership to Craftsy for only $1.49 for their first Craftsy membership. Click that link below to get started. Let me know what creative endeavors you are doing. And thank you so much to Craftsy for sponsoring today's video. So the prologue opens with James saying we shouldn't have done it. And by it, he means it.
I think it's informal.
Great, that's what I was going for.
Nina wanted to tell herself that she'd misheard that James Foster, her brother's best friend and her actual dream guy, hadn't just said those words 30 seconds after making her arrive on his sofa. She says, "Are you serious?" And he's like, "Wait, you disagree?" And she says, "What does that mean?" And she's like, "Oh, so it should be like painfully obvious that it was a bad idea that we just did this," which, by the way, what was done was just him going south on Nina, okay? Just for clarity, because it's probably gonna come up again later.
I'm very good at face down people, it turns out.
Love that.
She'd gone all out with this silly seduction plan, hoping he'd finally see her as Nina instead of the kid she'd been back when they first met. "I'm sorry, Cupcake," he said. Cupcake number one.
You gonna help me out, Cupcake?
Stop calling me that.
Ah! And all this serves to do is make me hungry for food, and I don't appreciate that. If all she wanted was to sleep with James, this rejection wouldn't have bothered her. There were plenty of guys she could sleep with, plenty of guys she did sleep with, but none of those men were sweet and serious and generous and open and determined and protective and James. So she's hung up on this dude and she assumes that he doesn't want to be with her because he's her brother's best friend. They have an age gap of like 6 years. None of those men had gone from being her brother's best friend, just part of the furniture, to someone she might actually nauseatingly love.
Little Miss Romance is what they call me.
"Don't worry, I won't tell my brother," she says. And he says, "Aw shit, Marcus." And it says, "Well, holy fuck sticks in a bleeding blue canoe." I don't love that that line, but all right, it's fine. So her brother Marcus, or Mark, is in the Royal Air Force. These people are British, by the way, they're English. And when Mark joined the Royal Air Force, he told James to look after Nina. So now she's thinking, James just really just straight up didn't want her at all. So she tells him, don't talk to me. I don't want to see you. I don't want to hear from you. Stay away from me unless my brother's home and we have to play nice. So then 6 weeks later, and this is dual POV, so we switch over to James's POV. He's a mechanic and he's working on a car, which I love a man who's a mechanic. Actually, I love anybody who's a mechanic. Remember her? Yeah, you might not, but I do. But he's only taking this job as a favor for his dad's friend because he needed a distraction from Nina, who actually shows up to the job, glaring at him like he'd eaten her firstborn. If he weren't such a thick-headed dick, he could be throwing an arm over her shoulders and taking her to lunch right about now. But that's not technically true, is it, James? Because you think that she just wants to boink. That's the whole problem, is these people just don't have that conversation, and then they just boink under cover of night, and then they're like, we shouldn't have done it. Well, at least he is. So she shows up and she's like, I need to talk to you. I'm getting death threats. I'm assuming this has something to do with the site. Nina was the anonymous founder and editor of Reality Check UK, an independent political news site dedicated to explaining current events, human rights, and British law in a manner that average citizens could understand. Her work upset certain people. So her article about Brexit's Leave campaign breaking electoral law goes viral, got millions of hits, and The Sun called her a black rights extremist. They make fun of The Sun, which I do think is an actual English paper, right? Turns out that he's been keeping up with her work. He regularly reads her paper, which is honestly so cute, because he wanted to feel like he was with her, which was probably pathetic. No, it's not. He's freaking cinnamon roll. And he's like, that was published weeks ago. I know that. So you've been getting death threats for weeks and you're just telling me this now. And she's like, why would I tell you when we are not friends anymore, bub? So what changed? Did something happen? He's asking. She says, I think I heard somebody trying to break into my house last night. I'm not really sure. I got a few weird tweets yesterday. I got some cryptic comments yesterday. They were saying something about finding out my identity. She didn't feel comfortable calling the police. And he's like, well, I can take you to the station now. And she says, no. And also they want me to shut down the website. That's why they're doing this. And that would be an easy way out. And she doesn't want to give them that power. And he's thinking about the fact that this is compromising her safety. And Mark, his best friend, asked him specifically, watch out for my sister when he went into the RAF. And he's like, all right, brilliant idea. You stay with me. That seems like a foolproof plan that surely will not end in things happening. Everybody knows that anytime people who already have feelings for each other and end up in a bodyguard situation, that they definitely stay platonic. He says, you'll stay with me. She says, is this part where I say, yes, daddy, and do as I'm told? And I'm like, whoa, nope, too soon. We're in chapter 1. Slow down. He's like, who's gonna keep you safer than me? And I'm like, oh my God, is this Provider by Sleep Token? Because it's starting to feel that way. And she's like, what are you gonna do? Kidnap me? You wouldn't dare. And he says, for you, I dare a lot. I'm like, okay, you know what? Actually, this is kind of working for me. I'm seeing it. I'm seeing why he's the James. I'm seeing it. Chapter 2 is in her POV. She's at his house and she's like, man, burying myself in James' sheets is not helping me to be like, let's not do this. And for once we get a description that actually sounds plausible, whereas all these dudes smell like midnight wind, and I don't know why Rhysand smells like citrus, but he does. But this guy smells like scent of clean skin and star anise, along with hint of engine oil edge musk. And I'm like, you know what? That tracks. She thinks about the fact that she's in his house again, and she felt so stupid 6 weeks ago when they did what they did, and then he was like, we shouldn't have done that immediately after. Like, that was a shitty move. She really actually believed that James wanted her, all of her, that she, the prickly freak who lived to bitch, the awkward, bullied emo, the big mouth who didn't know when to swallow her outrage or how to express her pain, would get the guy. And I was like, oh no. Now I really like this because I was the bullied emo one. They check her computer and she is getting some more threatening tweets. Like one of them, trigger warning for racism, says, this will teach you to look down on your betters, you dumb, insert animal here. She's like, someone is sharing my address. They know who I am. And he says, no, they said you're from Nottingham. They might know where you live, but you're not even at your house right now. And so they're trying to regroup. And he's like, also, we need to talk, Cupcake. Maybe now isn't the greatest time, but I already left things too long. And he said, I can't excuse like me being irresponsible is what he said. As soon as we were done, I just felt so guilty. Everything was flooding back. She's like, okay, but how were you irresponsible exactly? Consistently, James is just going to use the wrong wording that reinforces what Nina already believes about him. And that's why it takes them so long to have the conversation where they're finally like, oh, we are on the same page, which I don't love, but I don't hate it either.
It's not my favorite spice level.
He says, you're 23. She's like, you didn't seem that to mind that when you had your tongue between my Bam. She says something to the effect of like, you know, him being reminded of how awful it was. And he said, did I act like it was awful? I wanted to take back the whole thing, but I didn't want you to leave. I can't be like these little boys you take to bed. We're not like that. We're friends. We matter. And if he just wouldn't have said we're friends, then they would have had the conversation sooner. And she's like, okay, we just won't do it again. She's frustrated in the next chapter thinking like how she's an expert on so many things, misleading rhetoric, EU subsidies, and yet she can't understand James. She can't understand why he is the way he was. How could he touch her like that 1 minute and then flinch away? And so they're talking about this again, and she's like, I just don't get it. Like, clearly, like, you can't do this because you love my brother. And he's like, because I love, and then he doesn't answer. And I'm like, if you just would have said it. And so they feel like everything's reinforcing that they shouldn't do this any further, that they shouldn't be together. This can't have to happen. You're off limits. You're my cupcake. Well, he'd certainly eaten her like one.
Call the ambulance now, because they're about to go to taste heaven.
Stop it. We flash back. Well, she's dreaming. She's remembering what happened between them. And the words glossy folds are used, which I don't love, but it could be so much worse. I have read a lot of spicy scenes, and my God, the language that I have used is so, have read that has been used is so bonkers. So this isn't my favorite, but it's also not like I'm not gonna cringe into non-existence.
It's not my favorite spice level.
It does say that he savored the tang of her honey, which I also don't love, but again, that's just personal preference. So she's thinking about how he, you know, tasted her honey.
Ah, oui, oui, madame. Un petit nipple.
Oh wait, it's him. He's thinking about how he tasted her honey. That's right. And he wakes up and he falls off the couch because he's sleeping on the couch because he can't be trusted to sleep next to her and not, you know, eat the cupcake. But Nina simply didn't want the things James wanted. Didn't want the romance, the commitment, the intimate connection he craved with her and her alone. He's thinking about her because, you know, he was just dreaming about her and he's already at attention.
Doesn't everyone want a stiff pea?
We all want to stiff pea.
Hell yeah.
And so he's just like, you know what? I'm gonna pull the taffy. What? Oh God. I'm gonna shuck the corn. I'm gonna shuck the corn. Don't laugh. I'm gonna shuck the corn and then I'll just be done and I'll go to sleep. Except he's shucking the corn and Nina walks into the room.
I think this is going as well as we expected.
Yes, I'd agree with that.
And it's like nighttime. So under cover of darkness, she finds him shucking corn. All he could do was hold her midnight gaze and keep shucking corn. And so she looks at him and they lock eyes. He understood the message hidden there just this once. And you know, this is when I was like, you know what, actually, this is sort of starting to fit the Sleep Token song Provider. And here's the thing, let's just give me a second. So the thing about Provider by Sleep Token, I wanna be a provider. So many of the people on Book Talk who are using it to promote books are using it to promote the wrong books, or they're writing a book that they hope feels like a Sleep Token song, but there's something so organic and authentic about that song. It's not a dark romance song. It's a pining song, and this man is pining. And even the lyrics are, I want to delineate the last time we were around each other, I found myself hesitate. But I know that's James! It's so perfect! Caught up on you. Want to do more than just bend the rules? Okay, it's fine. And the whole time he's thinking like, I guess this is all we can be because she doesn't want anything more. He had practically begged her in his conversation to say that they were more, that he was different, but she didn't pick up on those hints because he thought that they were so overt and she didn't pick up on them at all. And he says, you stay over there, I'll stay over here. When you're done, Nina, go to sleep. And tomorrow we pretend like nothing happened. I'm gonna come back to the Sleep Token thing, okay? I'm gonna come back to it. And it says, oh my God, of him shucking corn, it says that he all but throttled his own. Whoa. James, she whispered, just for him, and the sound of it was a drug. He never stood a fucking chance. Okay, that's actually really cute. Again. So they end up going to the police because she was technically doxxed, regardless of the fact that they got the wrong address, is what it says. They know where she's from, but the cops say the address shared as hers was not correct, so therefore she was not doxxed. We can't just click our fingers and stop online harassment. Have you tried blocking the perpetrators? And he says, have we tried blocking the people who send death threats? I actually talked a lot about online harassment, particularly from men, and in this particular case, from men against Black women, which Nina in this book is also a Black woman. We talk about that a lot in this book, and I thought that it was so well done here. This is done like as a side part of a romance, but in this it's like mainly about that. So if you're looking to read a book where it's like online harassment and it's also mixed media format, this does that, and it really dives in, like it really, well, I wouldn't say dives in, it really nails so accurately the way that men speak to and about women, particularly Black women, on the internet. Let's get back into the romance though. Thinking again about how they seem to be on different pages and he wishes that she felt more for him, he's thinking, is she really unaffected? Does sex really mean, no, does sex with me really mean nothing to her? So he's thinking these things while talking to her about the issue of the stalking. So he's a little tied up in the brain, dealing with these two things at once. Why the fuck did they keep bringing up your record? So you tied yourself to a few trees. And she's like, you know what? I think we need a moment to just decompress. Let's go to Bounce Nation. And so they go to a trampoline park, and I was like, you know what? Oh, I like these people. I don't like the nicknames, but they have won me over by chapter 4.
It is definitely too soft.
She's like, apparently this is great cardio. He's like, what would you know about cardio? And she says, I walk places sometimes. And you know what? I could have written that. That's a line straight out of a conversation between me and Carlos. Carlos is so good at cardio. He's like, I'm gonna go for a 2-mile run, and he just goes, and he's like back so fast. And I'm like, if I had done that, I'd be dead. I can't do cardio. I can't do math, and I can't run. If those were required of me, I'm deceased. I feel Nina so hard right now. She's at Bounce Nation with him. They're bouncing away. They're, trying to get their frustrations out. And she's still thinking about the fact, just like he is, that they're not on the same page. James didn't really want her. Not properly. Not in the daylight. Not in his right mind. You said daylight. Sleep token mentioned by proxy. Not only does the song say, our bodies converge like old friends, which they literally are, it also says, exchanging the years in silence with something unsaid on both ends. Surely we know the difference. That's them in this moment, but even in the daylight, I can give you what you want. But up to this point, they only do this under cover of darkness. This is Provider by Sleep Token, down to the T. Like, dot the I's. I don't even know what I'm saying anymore. This is Provider by Sleep Token if it were a book. I wanna be a provider. And only because it wasn't trying to be. None of these dark romance books that are using this song on their book talk reels, I'm sorry, nothing against you, but it doesn't hit the same when it's effortless, just like Sleep Token effortlessly made that song because they're so talented, it just oozes from them. This book naturally became Provider by Sleep Token. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if Vessel read this book and said, you know what? I'm gonna write this into a song. The same way he plays Zelda and writes that into a song. This is turning into a Sleep Token video. I'm sorry. Let me rewind. He was so goddamn sweet, this man, doing whatever it took to calm and entertain her. They're bouncing away, and her everyday bralette wasn't sturdy enough for Tits on Tour Bounce Nation edition, which honestly, that was kind of funny.
I think it's hugely witty.
She triggered an earthquake-level boob rebound and instinctively grabbed them with both hands, then yelped and swung mortified eyes to James. Boobies just bouncing out, which is exactly why I don't jump in the trampoline park anymore. I only let my kids do it, and I stay on the sidelines in my socks like a chill mom. Titties are retired. Don't need to go on Tits on Tour. When they get back to his place, he makes her remind him what she always says about men. She's like, what do you mean? He's like, the thing that you always say. She says, oh, mine for a good time, not for a long time. And he makes her say this to remind himself that they can't be anything more because of her. But she wants more, if you would have just asked. Thinking about the political climate that caused her to end up getting the doxing threats, or getting the death threats, it says, this political minefield had hooked its claws under the skin of so many citizens, and they were letting it drag them around like puppets. The widespread frenzy loosened tongues and inhibitions, bringing to light all the little violences people had once hidden. There was something sour at the root of this nation, a bitter evil that had been buried rather than exposed and healed. Some political issues excelled in dragging that bitterness to the fore. I was like, oh shit, this got deeper than I thought it was gonna. So she's like, you know what? I think I need to call in some assistance. So she goes and talks to some friends of hers who can maybe get her in touch with somebody from the news and get this story out there. And if there's eyes on her and this story, then she's less likely to be the victim of violence. After they talk to her friend that night at his apartment, once again, under cover of darkness, she walks into the living room and he's like, I need to send her away. 3 times is a pattern. This can't be a pattern. And so he goes to tell her to leave, and instead he says, come here. Buddy, You walked right into it. Maybe saying no would make a bad night worse. Maybe this was actually his moral duty. You know, she's going through death threats. So they fool around a little bit, and afterwards he's like, all right, time for bed. You're going to be knackered tomorrow, and that ruins everything. Once again, he has put his foot in his mouth, and because of this, she reaffirms her already existing belief that he simply doesn't want her. So her friend Jasmine that she went to go see gets her a slot on Good Morning Ladies with Heidi Carpenter. She plans to disclose her harrowing ordeal and win Middle Britain's hearts. They exploit me in my story, I get public support and short-term hypervisibility, aka relative safety, in return. And James is like, yeah, a plan, nice, capable women turn me on. And I'm like, oh my God, that is such a green flag. So then another green flag, they're hanging out at his house, and he pulls up Buffy on Netflix, even though he thinks Angel is a creep, which Angel is kind of a creep. Buffy was not 18. So she's sitting there and she's like, how do I approach this conversation? We have to have this conversation. We have to get this over with. Because she's starting to think maybe he really doesn't know that I mean it when I'm like interested in him. I'm interested in a long time, not just a good time. This time. A good time and a long time, both at the same time. She says, do you know what you mean to me? I adore you. And so he kind of like makes fun of her a little bit because she doesn't really know how to express these things.
Yeah, that's what I do. I'm a professional dater.
And he's like, listen, I want you, but I'm not talking about sex. Half measures aren't an option. I told you I can't be like those boys you take to bed. So if that's all you're offering, I won't take it. And she's like, oh shit, now I get it. The hesitation, the hot and cold. It never occurred to her that he might honestly believe that she'd put him in the same category as any other man in her life. And he's like, there's all these reasons why we shouldn't. I've known you too long. We're friends. You're Marcus's sister, but I just don't fucking care. And she's like, I don't chase men, but I've been chasing you. I don't want casual with you. And then they're making out. Good for them. So then we get into the spicy scene. Again, I don't love the language here, but that is because I am picky. This is not a judgment of anybody who loves this. It's just that I'm so picky about, I would honestly rather like gentle euphemisms, which is hilarious coming from somebody who like regularly flicks off the camera and swears and is like super abrasive, but like, I don't know, something about, I like to ease in, right? Yeah, it says he felt the hot slippery kiss of her through his boxers, scalding his and sending sparks of desperate pleasure down his spine. If her skin was oxygen, her must be life itself.
Quite often I need 2 holes so that I can squirt.
He couldn't lose his head though. This was for her. Everything he did was for her. Reminds me of Swan Princess. The vow I made was for her. So he says, what do you want, sweetheart? And she's like, listen, we've done other stuff. Can you just me? I know you want to probably do all that romantic shit.
When you meet that little bit of resistance, it usually means it's full.
And he's like, nah, we're f***ing. Your wish is my command, etc. And I was like, you know what? That conversation works for me, actually. I don't hate that at all. I don't like the hot, slippery, scalding stuff, but that was cute. I like that. Then he says, I need inside that pussy before I lose it. And I'm like, you kind of lost me there. No one could be ready for this. Her need for him was ravenous, and it had teeth. Teeth! Oh my God, this is a Sleep Token song. Then he's talking about all the stuff he wants to do to her. I want to hold you down and suck your until you cry. I want to watch you yourself on a for me. He's into toys? Oh my God. Oh, that is such a green flag. I want a lot of things from you, love. And she's like, well, hopefully one of them's an orgasm. I know we talked about feelings and stuff, but what is this? He's like, well, I'd like to think that we're in a relationship now.
Little Miss Romance is what they call me.
She's like, yeah, can't wait to tell my brother. He says, bedroom rule is that we do not talk about your brother. I don't really care what Mark thinks because you're an adult, and I know you don't care either, but let's stop breaking the bedroom rule. And then all of a sudden she just blurts out, I love you. Which, you know what? God, when will the kids close the door? When will the kids close the door? There's a fly in here again. She's like, well, I've been actually in love with you for like 3 years, if we're being honest. And I just thought I could ignore it and try this ridiculous idea of seducing you. And I'm like, that is ridiculous. Worked out in your favor though. So she ends up going on the morning show and talking about her ordeal, Nina's vulnerability, and this is like in James's POV, which I really liked that we got it in his POV so we could see her going through this and like see her through his eyes in this moment of like trying to take control of the situation very publicly. Nina's vulnerability wasn't for anyone else, but it still existed. Whether she hid it or used it or chose to ignore it, it was always there. She says in the interview, sometimes I think Black women in particular are seen as strong in a way band-aid that removes our humanity. Think about the furor around the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, which isn't that, I don't know anything about British stuff, but isn't that Meghan Markle and Prince Harry? I think Meghan Markle is lovely, and the way that I see British people talking about her on Twitter is diabolical. My real worry is for Black girls and young women who will see the messages I received and wonder if those insults apply to them. That's how hate poisons entire societies. And so the interviewer is saying, there are others who have no problem with you personally, yet suggest that your beliefs are dangerous. Nina says, I'm far from dangerous. I want education for all and honest government. My only rule is do no harm. The interviewer says, well, you certainly don't seem scary to me. Nina says, what's truly dangerous is the fact that someone attempted to dox me. Where was the outcry against people who threatened to kill me? Interviewer says, you've been writing about politics and social issues for years now. It doesn't seem like any of your goals for the nation have come to fruition. In fact, with developments like Brexit and the current Tory government, things have been moving in the opposite direction. How does that make you feel? And Nina says, it makes me feel like the unfairness in the world may never end, but that's okay because hope never dies. And James says, she was incredible. She was vital. Book basically ends after that, and I just thought that that was so beautiful. In the end, I gave this a 4. I really like how we tied everything together. I think we could have done a little bit more about the political stuff, just not the doxing and the harassment stuff, but I actually would have liked more of Nina's perspective on the political stuff, just because like that one paragraph that I mentioned a little bit earlier was just so good. Talia Hibbert is clearly brilliant, and that came through Nina, and I want to hear more about her opinions on things. Again, I don't know anything about British politics hardly at all, but I'd like to hear about it from Talia Hibbert, but that's not what this book was really about. But I appreciated that as a side part of what this book was. I actually really enjoyed Nina and James. I really like them. To be honest, this is the second time that I have read this, and I enjoyed it less last time. Upon reread, I enjoy this so much more, and I think that's because I've read so many more books since the last time I read it, that now the things that I like desperately want to see in a book that just features two people trying to figure out whether or not, you know, they actually have feelings for each other, like that Allie Hazelwood book that I read that's sort of similar to this, where it's like, you know, brother's best friend, little bit of a age gap, little bit, and trying to figure out if they actually have feelings for each other or not, like if the other person does. I think this does that so much better, and I have more of appreciation for it now than I did when I read it in, I think, like 2021, because I've read so many other books that now, like, this is the blueprint for short and sweet romance featuring brother's best friend, age gap, figuring out if we actually have feelings for each other or if this is just, you know, a schmexy time. What? And I maintain that this book is Provider by Sleep Token. Let me know if you have any recommendations that are like, brother's best friend, are we or are we not a thing? Do you have feelings for me or not? But like actually do it in a way that isn't annoying as heck. It's very difficult to write a book where that whole like, why aren't these characters seeing what I'm clearly seeing is done without annoying me into a lower rating. This book, it was fine. Like, it was like, all right, a couple times I'm like, come on, just say it. If you wouldn't have said that one word. But the rest of it balanced everything out so perfectly and made this like really tender, lovely moment with some like real human authenticity to it. Like the bounce nation, the political stuff, like these feel like very real people to me, and I enjoyed my time with them. And also I kind of like the whole you stand over there, I stand over here, we can't touch each other type shit. I think I like that. I think I want more books with that. I think I would like spicy scenes more if they had more of that in it. I dig that. I recommend this one. I think you should try it. It's on Hoopla. If you have Hoopla, you should do, you might not have Hoopla anymore because the fucking IMLS is getting defunded by our fucking government. But if you are a Hoopla user who still has access, this is on there and I highly recommend trying it out. It's also on Kindle Unlimited. If you have Kindle Unlimited, you can read the ebook there. There is an audiobook. I like the audiobook, but I ended up just finishing it on ebook because that was during the time that I was also listening to Bull Moon Rising. So I was doing the Bull Moon Rising audiobook, which was certainly a time. There's nodding in that book, which I always have to sort of prepare myself for. So does the character. I'm getting away from myself. Okay, thank you so much for watching. If you made it this far, leave a dessert emoji down below. And I will see you next time. Bye! And before I go, I have to say thank you for being a friend. Therapy Bills patrons, and those are Alexander, Andy, Ashley 8, Astra, Beck, Call Me Kodiak, Choco's Homesick for Taiwan, DJ Rocktopus, Ellie, Emerald Dodd, Eric, Jade L, John E, Jory, Julie D, K, Kai Brecker has not read Six of Crows, Kaleno K, Kelly K, Quinn, Lady Kittybug, Lady Chips, Lemon Jelly, Lex, Other Lek, Lily, Lisa L, Mataraptor, Max B, Megwin Rose, Melissa, Minby, Mixer Boneless, Not So Secretly a Skeleton, Peggy Luhu, Piloting SRN, Rain, Reese, SJ, Samar, Scarlet, Spoopy, Steph B, Super SMA Girl Lily, 3 Raccoons in a Trench Coat, Tori, Urchin Audrey, White Raven 13, and Zorvictia. Thank you all so much for being here and for being a friend. And a huge thank you to my potato starch Marxists, Adrian, Aaron, Alejandra, Ali Oxenfree, Althea, Amanda D, Angelica, Artie the Ninth, Ava, Barry B, Beck Lowe, Binging for Soup, Blue Moon Syrup, Bookish by Jenna, Bookish Rabbit, Bree, Bridget 108, Kate, Caitlin, Carlin, Carly, Casper, Kate W, Kath Cole, Colleen, Corwin, Cosmic Frog, Courtney, Darius, Danielle, Danita, Darren, Desiree Michelle, Dilf Enthusiast, Dorothea Supports Public Education, Draco-chan, Drive-By Thinker, Ebby, Emily A, Emma, Aaron with 2 E's, Erica May, Aaron Starlight, Gadarn, Hannah C, Helen P, Harassing, JM Tennant, Jackalope Max, Jay is on Olympus, Jelly V, Jen Michelle, Genderqueer, Jenny G, Jessie Ives, Jessa Sue, Jill, Jojo Bookish, Juicy Wizard, who I just met in person at Booknet Fest, and I was so excited. Caitlin M, Catherine, Katie, Katrina, Kayla, Kaylee, Kayala, Kendra, KMTV, Kayana, Laughing Cat Dog, Laura is Angry, Lauren G, Lazarus Ray, Lindsay M, LP, Lou Siri, Lustful Octopus, Martin, Macy Jane, Maddie, Madison, Man-Eating Plant, Megan, Malara, May, Mima Who, Morgan P, Myth Lesbian, Nicole G, Oxford, supporter, same, Paige P, Penelope, Penny Chilling, Foxglove, Pick a God and Pray, Plague Carrier, Pandemonium, Queen Cereal, Rachel B, Rebecca R, Ren, Flynn, Rhea, Ronnie, Rosie Thorns, Sikoria, Sadie, Saintbringer, Sakia Lume, Sarah H, Sarah the Bear, Shamed, Shannon, Sheen Onion, Sean, Sophie, Talia, That One Cute Chick, This Is Not a Trap, Tiana, Too Thick to Work to Get Today, Triple M, Tito Phoenix, Unicorn Jenny. Thank you all so much for being here and for being a friend.